friends. My name is host Eric. I am the host of Talking with Famous People, here with another host of Talking with Famous People, Zachary. We've got T-shirts and JC in attendance as well, and we are talking this evening about intertype relations. And the first type that we're going to talk about is a type that host Trenton and I understand well because we're both ENTPs. Zachary suggested this is a starting point. Get out of the way right away. ENTP. What is that relationship going to be like? Well, I think it's identical. If you look at the Socionics stuff on identical relationships, it'll tell you basically that they'll get tired of each other really fast. They'll discover there's not really anything to learn there. But the thing about an ENTP identical relationship that makes it especially challenging is that ENTPs typically don't get along with one another. I don't know if this is not true of INTPs. I know this is not true of INTPs because I see all the INTPs commenting on Zach's INTP shit, right? It's like they're all happy to be INTPs. We're all happy to be INTPs together. ENTPs, to the extent they want to comment on my stuff, it's almost always going to come in with a criticism. They're going to come rolling and explain to me why I'm wrong. So that's the first thing they're going to do. And when it depends on the I mean, there has to be some way for two ENTPs to conceptualize a relationship of any sort. I think that there's no chance in hell two ENTPs could be in a romantic relationship because neither party would know how to be the adult in that relationship, in the sense of who's supposed to be the nurturer, who's caring for the other person. ENTPs are caring, we're loving people, but in a relationship, in an intimate relationship, we expect nurturing from the other person primarily. We're looking for somebody with who's a emotional provider. In a non-intimate relationship, like a work relationship or a friendship or an internet thing or whatever you want to call it, then it's a much different matter because the amount of interest that two ENTPs can potentially take in one another is contingent not only on the factor of self-growth, so to speak. Like a lot of times when people connect well, it's because each person has something to offer the other person's not so good at. That's sort of the Socionics Intertype model says the relations between individuals is going to be dependent upon their respective strengths and weaknesses. So if you have two ENTPs together, they have the same respective strengths and same respective weaknesses. They can't really help cover for the other one's bad spots. However, there are some...
Actually,
go ahead.
Wait, can you hear me? Can you hear me fine?
If you're up close like that, I can.
Yeah, I think that the mirror, or not mirror, identical, my bad. I think that identical relations can go well if one of them is further ahead, so to speak, than the other one. So I think like a student/teacher type of thing can go really well if under that relation. But like if it's two people who are on the same development path, so to speak, the person who's further on the development is going to help out the other one. That's how I feel like my relationship with my my best friend, who's also an ITP, has gone through. Because I feel like he was like super similar to me, but he was later on down the stage. And even though his advice doesn't always resonate with me, it usually is. I usually end up on the same road, so to speak, if that makes sense. So I think if there's like a student/teacher relationship going on, I think it can be very beneficial in that regard.
Well, I tend to agree with that analysis. I would say that ENTPs are less likely to fit well into that type of thing than other types, perhaps, because I know Trenton doesn't think he needs to give 1 inch of ground about any of these analytical things. That he's competent. That if he spotted something that I said that's wrong, that he's gonna go. He's convinced that he can throw down all the way to the end of the thing. And that's the thing about ENTPs. We're obsessed with this. We're obsessed with this like thing, and it makes it difficult for us to to have good relationships. But I do think that that's the key element. I wouldn't say teacher student though. I would say something like old guy and young guy smart enough to take advantage of old guy's years of mistakes to avoid them.
Mentor me.
You know? Trenton, what do you think
Yeah, I think
about all
in general,
this?
like the whole. Wait, what?
Go ahead, Zachary. Go ahead.
I think you're right, though. In general, I think the problem with the relation is that it's like what you said. I mean, they both have each other's strengths, they have each other's weaknesses, and so they can't really offer any meaningful advice to help develop the weaker functions of the other one, right? So if, let's say,
There's got to be a skill development that's not cognitive function related.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. They can't help them develop any of their own functions. Like, if anything, my INTP friend has helped destroy my FE development. If anything, we both just like conflict all the time. Or we used to, not as much anymore, but yeah.
Well, I think regarding that sort of dynamic, it's my thinking is with Trenton, the way that we can help each other is more practical than spiritual. You know, it's that the ENTP naturally has certain handicaps that we have to develop complex tricks to deal with. Trenton's very far along in his trick complexity. He's churning through ENTP mental processing, getting to the bottom of this whole like FE-TI fucking internal conflict shit we got going on. Where we do shit like I did, right? Where I throw out a video that was impulsive, that I thought was funny, but then I was like, oh, Eric, you did it again. Well, those sort of pitfalls are implicit to this cognitive function stack, and obviously you don't ever outgrow it, but you hope to outgrow the framing mistakes that you made when you were younger, maybe. Like,
Do you think that?
Oh, go ahead, JC.
Sorry.
No,
Do you
please.
think that other identical types, like, do you think they bring out like the worst in you? In that, when you see your flaws reflected back at you, you kind of get some type of validation in that it's like, oh, okay, you're doing that too? Great, I can do that, and now we can just do that bad thing together. It's almost like it brings out the worst in you.
I think, like,
It
in that sense,
could.
like, one of the things that before when I've got an argument with my INTP friend, we both throw the intellectual dishonest card at each other. Like, you're being intellectually dishonest. No, you're being intellectually dishonest. It's just like, it's so like, I don't know, it's hilarious. Like, what's hilarious in retrospect, in the times I'm always like super upset, and so is he, and we're like, you know, but.
Yeah. All right. So Trent, what's your take on this?
No, go ahead.
As the other ENTP in this ENTP identical relationship analysis. I mean, we haven't known each other very long, but see, ENTPs don't take a long time to close the gap. You know, as soon as we start chatting, we're telling each other, we're just being transparent about whatever's going on, right? We're not very careful. So, even though I haven't known Trenton very long, I feel like I know him reasonably well. To be honest, I feel like I know him perfectly because I feel like I'm looking at a fucking time capsule of myself, right? But Trenton, what do you think about all this stuff?
If I was thinking about what Zach said about his INTP friend not helping his FE, and I was thinking about like all of the spots that you call it, the things that I've learned to FE dance with, like in the South, and I've almost had a perfect system in avoiding conflict, and it had been like months since I'd engaged in any kind of like passionate argument. And the first time I even talked to you guys, that side of me, it just fucking came out of me. And like that night, I ended up getting in an argument with somebody just from being around you guys. It brung that out in me, and I could see what JC was saying about that. And
That's not a bad thing, though. That's the point is. You mean you helped people by showing them their wrongness?
Yeah, yeah. But there was I think ENTP's kind of there's a certain shallowness, almost not shallowness, but in our relationships where we're kind of on the basis of trying to pick somebody apart and understand them a lot, and that's very fun to us. And then when we're with somebody, if we were really close with somebody, like if we were close friends, there would be nothing we could pick apart about each other because we're the same type, essentially.
There's not much to pick apart, and in fact, we can get into little. ENTPs can do this with each other. I don't know if this happened with Trenton exactly yet, but this little sort of purposeless, like death spiral with each other, where you start. Neither person can get around the other person at all, in terms of if there's any sort of dispute. But usually, if there's a dispute, what it really is one of the ENTPs is going to be having some sort of emotional thing going on they're unaware of entirely, and they will simply be acting out that by being extra contrary and extra difficult. I know that's how I act still to this day, but at least now I sort of recognize it for what it is, and that helps control those sort of things a little bit. I think the difference...
I've noticed I've had that before where, I feel like I experienced some of the same ontological issues as my friend, and before he has found what he believed, or things that have helped him, and he has recommended it to me. But there's a sort of contrarian nature in me that's like, I don't necessarily think they won't help, but for some reason the fact that I didn't come to that conclusion, like, I'm contrary against it.
Right.
You know,
well,
like before...
Nothing's a good idea. If it's not our idea, it's not a good idea. Is a sort of default starting point for NTPs in general, I think. But here's the thing that has to be remembered: if there's a specific skill in play, for example, when you came to coach with me, Zachary, and you joined GTM and you were coaching and you were learning about coaching and stuff like that. When you went to Utah and you worked with the kids. Now, in that instance, it's not like, it's going to be very different. You're not going to say to yourself, I don't want to work with the kid. I don't want to come up with a debate case that tries to do smart things because Eric likes it that way. I want to come up with my own way. We're going to do it with flowers. Debate allows you to do it your own way. It only requires you to be effective. But the thing about it is, you wouldn't go into something you don't know, something that somebody, a specific skill set that someone's extremely practiced at, and assume there's nothing to learn from that individual simply because you're super smart. And that has nothing to do with type or anything like that. It has to do with there's something concrete that's going on that you're working together with somebody on. So, and that one of the people has knowledge of how to successfully execute that. In this instance, it's a little different with me and Trenton because I'm not sure to what extent that we're going to end up being collaborating or not. We haven't had that conversation really exactly. And regardless, though, what I would say is that let's say somebody else wanted to make YouTube videos. Regardless of whether I am a good YouTube video maker or a bad YouTube video maker, I am a much better YouTube video maker now than I was 1,000 videos ago, I think, in general. That doesn't mean I didn't have an occasional excellent video by my standards now, 1,000 videos ago, but it wasn't, the overall standard level of quality was high. It was lower, and it's higher now on a number of different channels or ways of thinking about it. The point is, for an ENTP, I'm convinced that this medium is what we need. That the tricks that one person might tell another can be summed up as, you need to actualize your identity externally, and yet finishing long projects that are laborious is almost impossible. This is it. This is designed for ENTPs, because we can do as much work as we want that's of whatever completeness level that we feel is appropriate for that, and we can take advantage of the fact that we can freestyle shit all the time, constantly. Like, we're gonna make talking videos. I mean, there's no end to it. I could just continue talking forever, as is evidenced right now. So in this regard, we're talking about a specific concrete architecture and a specific concrete model for actualizing an identity for an ENTP that allows the ENTP endless flexibility, which is what they need, and simultaneously converts the time they spend doing work into finished products that don't go away. Finished work product that remains. It doesn't need to be maintained.
Yeah, there's one thing I was wanting to add about the ENTPs or INTPs. It is that once you know one ENTP, you pretty much know all ENTPs, because we have, like, there are no, we are, who an ENTP is basically a mechanism.
A mechanism. That's quite an exit there. That's great. It's just like, that's it. Boom, I'm out of here.
I guess, I mean, I think that, I don't know, I think that ENTPs don't really have a consistent mechanism. They sort of adapt to each new environment. I think that's different from the INTP, who, I think that's why they're so hesitant to enter new environments, because they already have a framework, and before they enter a new environment, they want to account for that. Like, they want to refine their framework, so once they enter the new environment, it's going to be applicable already. They're not going to have to adapt, but they always have to adapt, and they don't realize that, and that's what leads to all the anxiety. You know, that's why they have to make that kind of like leap of faith.
Well, what I think the challenge in it, well, we'll do INTP and ENTP relationship next, so let's not start talking about that. But the ENTP relationship is one that's probably short-lived, unless it's something like super concrete, that two people are both doing similar work that needs two people's worth of work doing, or something. Like, if you were a lawyer and you had an ENTP lawyer partner and you both had paralegals, that would be a good scenario for ENTPs to work together. Neither of them is expecting the other one to do anything maintenance-wise, because that's the problem, is the maintenance stuff. NTs in general, we really, but especially NTPs, we really don't want to have to do the shit we come up with. We'd love to have a massive staff of people, right? Like 40 people. We come up with ideas, and then we hand it off to the type that then goes and starts making shit happen with it. And then they come back to us and say, "This is the state your idea's in now, Eric. How's it coming along?" And I go, "You know what? You should probably change that thing there." And then they go, "Ooh, that's brilliant." And they take my idea away and they go work on it somewhere, and they bring it back to me and they go, "We love your idea so much. It's so much fun working on it. Tell us, how are we coming along?" I'm like, "Coming along pretty good." That's the ideal NTP job, right? Just come up with ideas, sit in a chair, and have people bring them to you and say, here's how we're celebrating your brilliance, Eric." Unfortunately, that job doesn't exist, I don't think. Huh?
I think that's why. I think that's why music is such a good activity for NTPs, because it allows them to not only have the ideas, but they can engage in them, you know, and see them in real time. I think
What's a good activity? You cut out for 1 sec when you said "blah" is a good activity.
Playing music.
Playing music, right? Is that common amongst NTPs in general?
I don't know, but does Trent play an instrument?
I don't know.
I don't know, but I actually learned guitar because my INTP friend, he inspired me to learn it. So it's like, I don't know. I think that there are certain qualities about. I think the thing about the reason I like music so much is because I like stuff like progressive rock, stuff that like I can defeats my TI, where I'm just like, oh, that's so cool. They had this here and that, and I can follow along. And it's so complex. Then they slip those like emotional knives in your back when you're not paying attention, but it gives you that catharsis that you need. And I think that's why I enjoy music so much.
Right.
And playing is the best because then you get to fully engage in it.
I suspect we both access feelings through music that we don't access as in any sort of controlled way through other means, you know. Especially me with the FI in 7th, but you as well with FI in the 8th. It sounds to me like you have a better handle on FI than you think, probably. In the same way that I have a better handle on SE than I think, probably. Because when I hear you or other INTPs talking about emotions and media, it's as though it's part of a perfectly sensible and agreeably organized system where, well, when you want to experience this emotion, you'll simply play this piece of media, and then you'll experience that emotion.
Yeah, that's kind of what it's like. Yeah, I think that's the benefit of having that SI up there, where it's like we're aware of our comfort stuff, right? We like I have it categorized in the sense of like I know what album gives me these thoughts. And
right.
Whether it be like innately giving those thoughts, or if it's something that occurs because I've listened to that piece of music repeatedly while I've been in that state of mind, regardless, they're comfort pieces, you know, where you can come back to, and it allows you to have that FI release that you've had before. And the benefit of having SI is that for me, it never really gets old. As long as the TI is complex enough, I can just repeatedly come back to it.
Well, music doesn't get old like talking does, or I mean, like spoken word stuff. When I listen to a video, let's say I make a video, I think I really like what I say here, I like how I say it, I like the whole thing. I can watch it a few times, but that's about it. And then I kind of have it internalized what the juice points are that give me.
What about movies? What about movies for you?
Well, I don't really watch a lot of movies, and I don't seek it out to watch movies. But when I do watch a movie, sometimes it's good. But I tend to get impatient with movies. I can't sit through a whole movie. I go outside and smoke a cigarette in the middle of the movie for sure, probably a couple times. Trenton, you're back. Share us some more insight on this topic here of ENTP relationships. Zachary and I were getting a little sidetracked into some comparisons between ENTP and INTP, but I want to talk more about ENTP as a unique incarnation of the identical relationship.
Is Trin in here? There's only 3 of us.
Oh, he's not back. He was back for a second. He must have dropped again. Okay.
Yeah, maybe his connection is being spotty. I think that
I actually think I want to scrap this video. I want these ones about intertypes to be cleaner than this. With the technical difficulties and stuff, I think I'm going to scrap this one. What do you think? Because I'm envisioning sort of a clean... I mean, what yesterday's decision-making comparisons series convinced me is that one way that I can be less random while giving up no freedom is to do mini-series. So, like, the Intertype Relations mini-series will have videos that are more or less the same in presentation or whatever, each one. They may have different people in the GTM, but I'd like them to be, consistent in some way. And so in this one, since we have Trenton here, and I want to make sure, or if we can get Trenton here or another ENTP here, I'd rather have that, or if not, I'd rather have it just go real smooth without the technical stuff. So
has Chad made an impression on you apparently? Everything's so organized.
No, it's funny. This is that's sort of the impression I wanted to give with the backdrop was kind of like a. So let me get this straight. Being ENTJ means putting up a blanket behind you.
Well, you have a blanket behind you?
That's what the backdrop is. It's just a blanket I hung up behind me.
I just thought you were recording.